Absolutely. We're dealing with uncharted waters with first having our former president, Donald Trump, convicted of 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. And as soon as that trial is over and we get a verdict, that very Monday, we start with the trial against the sitting president's son. And now he's been found guilty of 3 felony counts in federal court and is also facing jail time, sad times in New York.
Indeed. Now, the jury didn't take very long to reach this verdict. What does it tell us about the strength of the case and any chance he might have of appeal?
The prosecution had a strong case against Hunter Biden. You have to think that Hunter Biden did write a book, and in that book, he does write about his struggles with drug addictions. So the prosecution used his own words against him, but also used those that are very close against him in the sense of Hallie Biden, the former wife of his brother that passed away, testified against him and provided key testimony and evidence against them. Also, the prosecution had text messages where Hunter Biden was making arrangements to meet with his drug dealer to get narcotics during the time when he did purchase that firearm, which was the key issue, is whether he lied on that application about whether he was unlawfully using narcotics, but also addicted to narcotics. And he was also charged with being in possession of that firearm while using unlawfully narcotics and being addicted to narcotics. So it was definitely a strong case when you put all that evidence together. It wasn't difficult for the jury to reach a verdict so quickly in a verdict of guilty. It's sad that the jury had to go through that when we're talking about drug addiction, which unfortunately affects so many here in the United States and actually all over the world.
And that's such an important point because he has completely rehabilitated himself, it would appear. How common is a prosecution like this, and what other cases can we look at to determine if it's likely going to be jail for him?
So I used to be a prosecutor, and I was a prosecutor for 16 years, prosecuting primarily homicide cases. And I was a supervisor, and I made hundreds of sentencing decisions as well as sentencing recommendations and the recommendations as to whether a case should be prosecuted, whether it should end up and result in a drug program, or whether it should end up on probation or with jail time. And I can tell you this is not common, a prosecution like this. In fact, we know this from last year that there was a deferred prosecution deal that was offered to Hunter Biden, but it fell apart. So normally these cases do not go to trial. Normally they do result as a first-time offender with no violent criminal record and also knowing about the severe drug addiction issues. It usually results in a drug program or a deferred prosecution. Now, in terms of what's going to happen now, because Hunter Biden did go to trial and a jury did find him guilty, there are many possibilities. Of course, the maximum is 25 years. Highly unlikely that Hunter Biden will be sentenced to 25 years. I think that in a case like this, if there is jail time, it will probably be less than a year or so. But I think the proper remedy for this case is for him to be placed on probation or for him to be again supervised through a drug treatment program and probation to supervise them. Because when you look at his background, he's young, doesn't have a criminal background. He's been working all his life. He's drug addicted. That's what led to this crime. When you look at his history, his characteristics, and his employment, he's not a person that will likely reoffend.
Yeah. Does it, though, compound what he's going to face later this year, and that is tax evasion charges?
Yeah, so that's what makes the case worse when you're dealing with Hunter Biden. I think the most serious case here is the tax evasion case, not the drug case, but rather the tax evasion case. So he's scheduled to go to trial, I believe, in September or October later this year in California, and those also are federal charges. So the question would be is whether his defense attorneys will ask this judge in Delaware to adjourn his sentencing to determine what's going to happen with that trial, whether he actually goes to trial on those charges or whether he can plead guilty to those charges and try to get a sentence that can be concurrent, meaning running at the same time, to encompass both of these cases and finally bring an end to the woes, the criminal woes of Hunter Biden.
Yeah. You know, the president has made it very clear that this is quite heartbreaking for him because he's a father as well as a president. He has said he will respect the jury's verdict and the rule of law. He says he won't pardon him. How do you think this might play out? Because, of course, it's a political hot potato in the lead up to an election.
And what President Biden is doing is trying to show that he's not going to show favoritism to this person, even though he is his son, that he's not going to show favoritism, that he wants the people to respect the rule of law, to respect his office, to respect his decision making, and also to show, of course, that no one is above the law in the sense of his own son. Even though it's his own son was prosecuted, was convicted, and is ready to face his sentence. So he's not showing favoritism in that sense. Quite contrast from what we see of Donald Trump, that he fights with everyone that has anything against him and condemns the criminal justice system. I'm curious to see, though, that if Hunter Biden is sentenced to jail, while President Biden wouldn't pardon him, whether he will commute his sentence, meaning that he will stop his sentence and there's no need, if he's sentenced to jail, for him to actually go to jail.
Yeah. Oh, Bernarda, appreciate your expertise and discussing this with us tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.